Good morning.
Let's get started with our Crook County Budget Committee meeting.
So we'll follow the agenda today. We'll start with introductions of our budget committee and board of commissioners. And then we'll move on to appointing a chair and vice chair, since this is a multi-day meeting. So.
I want to go, or I want to go the other way.
Sure, Scott, I first on the last, yeah, your turn, Scott.
Good morning. My name is Scott Tibbs, lifelong Crook County Wrangell resident. Recently retired from Les Schwab Warehouse after 27 years. Wife and I are local business owners here in Crook County. And this is my first term in the budget committee. And looking forward to continuing to learn more about our community.
Brian Barney, Commissioner for the county. 7 years running, lifetime resident, born and raised here in Franklin. Married. Wow. 5 grandchildren, 2 kids. Wow.
Very good. My name tag says William Anderson. I'm Bill, and we moved to Crook County just a little over 2 years ago. I've been in Central Oregon since 1990. Did some budget committee work in Deschutes County for a few years. Enjoyed that, and so I appreciate having the opportunity to be on this committee. Been married 42 years, 2 kids, 6 grandkids, and loving Crook County.
Seth Crawford, Crook County Commissioner, been here for 12 years. Something that I've been really passionate about is kind of long-term budget planning, and over the time, it was kind of slow to come, but I think we have just such an awesome finance department now, and things are really starting to kick off, and so I'm super excited to be part of this. Really appreciate all the work you guys do.
Steve Brown, background in municipal finance, municipal nonprofit, corporate finance. Currently running for managing, acting as CFO and asset manager for a few high net worth families. Been a little bit here about 3.5 years in Crook County. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and return to my foundation in business, which is analyzing these things. So thank you.
Susie Hermrich, I was appointed as Crook County Commissioner January, middle of December, maybe 4.5 months I've been here. I am fulfilling Jerry Brummer's term, and then I will re-up in, here in a couple weeks, I guess. And I'm a widow. I have 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren, and I'm a cattle and hay rancher, along with other hats.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you all for being here today. You're a vital part in this process, and we really appreciate your participation, as do we have the public and the department heads and county employees that are here. So we move into appointing the chair and vice chair.
Are there any nominations?
I nominate Bill Anderson for chair.
Second.
And Scott Tibbs for vice chair. Oh.
I'll second that.
Touche.
So is that,
So wait, do I ask? I guess I asked.
We have to do a
Okay,
full
so,
vote again for both of them.
All those in favor? Aye.
Of which one?
Maybe be specific. Are we,
Oh, I was the slate.
we could do them like separately, yeah.
So, all those in favor of Bill Anderson to be chair?
Aye.
Aye.
abstain?
All those in favor of Scott Tibbs to be vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you guys.
All right.
Okay,
Done with that.
well, as the chair, now we'll have our budget.
Sounds great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Good morning, Crook County Budget Committee. My name is Christine here and I'm the Finance Director for Crook County. I want to welcome everyone again to the first day of our budget meetings and thank you as well as all of the department heads, county staff and public that have been a part of this vital process for the county. As part of the transition from a contract county manager to an in-house county manager, I will be stepping into the role to present the budget message today. Mr. Parks is in attendance via the Zoom and will provide me any suggestions to fulfill this role. I would like to present to you the highlights of the budget message that is contained in the budget document that you received, which is available via the QR codes that are posted around the room, as well as in the printed version that you all received as a budget committee. So the budget addresses the 9 goals approved by the Board of Commissioners, March 1st, 2024. The goals above restate the goals that were adopted for fiscal year 2024 with the addition of goal 9, which is to prioritize public safety. The development of the fiscal year 2025 goals included several days of department presentations of their progress on the fiscal year 2024 goals, their specific issues, projected needs, and plans for fiscal year 2025 and beyond. Like fiscal year 2024, departments were organized into similar groups representing community justice, tax supported operations, revenue supported operations, and internal services for those discussions. Commissioners attended all of the discussions and like work sessions, heard and observed the same content, were able to discuss and make inquiries of department heads. Group information was summarized and findings were presented to the commissioners and department heads in a session to review, discuss, and approve goals for fiscal year 2025. After that discussion, the board expressed alignment on the goals and requested work plans and timelines for each goal. The objectives have been updated for various goals and each has specific tasks and a schedule attached to it. The first goal is to deliver the best level of service within our available and allocated resources within the county. The first objective is to maintain that forward momentum that we started in fiscal year 2024. The second is to review and agree on a defined level of service for each service and department. And that will begin in quarter 4, 2024 and continue through quarter 2, 2025. Third, review and agree on standard operating procedures for each service, which is anticipated to be in the same timeframe as number 2. And then finally, 4, ensure the defined level of service can be provided before taking on or making any changes to our existing plans, and that's kind of ongoing. So for goal 2, in April 2023, the county court added a contract county manager position, and during fiscal year 24, numerous policies and matters were reviewed, discussed, and ultimately decisions were made to determine how that administrative position and board members' roles and responsibilities and organizational structure would be able to lay the foundation to recruit the manager position. The county has retained an executive search firm to find its first county manager. And that was goal number 2, was to add a county administrator, which has since been renamed to the county manager position to Crook County. The goals and responsibilities were defined in April 2024. And in March, the organization officially changed its form of government from elected, executive, and commission to a manager commission and approved the final job descriptions for the county manager. And in April, the board also approved their roles and responsibilities and made assignments for commissioners to sit on various boards and commissions. And, okay, so you're here, carry on. For goal 3, we want to focus on providing adequate staffing and implement employee retention and recruitment programs within available resources. Those objectives included keeping compensation levels current with inflation trends within our available resources, which is an ongoing task and part of our compensation study. We want to improve recruitment and retention of employees, which is an ongoing initiative, and then define desired staffing levels in each department within our current resource levels and execute hiring decisions based upon those needs, which is also ongoing. Our fourth goal is to plan, develop and implement an organizational-wide facilities plan. And the first part of that is to complete the Justice Center, then create a facilities plan, implement a facilities plan, and collaborate with the Parks and Rec District and the city for an events center. The fifth goal is to implement our information technology roadmap, which includes the ERP phase 1 implementation, which is expected to be completed here in the next few months. We want to recruit key IT positions. I believe one of them was recently recruited this week or last week, and we have one more to go to be able to meet that objective. We are currently in the process of selecting a human resource information system, which is what HRIS stands for. They've been able to demo and I believe have mostly come to an agreement on the software they want to move forward with, and now they're determining what pieces we need at this point and looking at pricing to make sure it fits our needs. And then finally, we will be looking at implementing that HRIS system once we've finally chosen one in fiscal year 2025. And then finally, to initiate the second phase of the ERP implementation, which includes additional modules in the ERP that we have purchased, including asset management and cash receipts and some other options that we don't currently have in what we, the version of that ERP system right now. So our sixth goal is to plan, develop, and implement an organizational-wide asset management program, partly with the help of that ERP. The first step of that is to determine the scope and services of delivery of this plan, what it actually looks like, and what will be managed under that plan, and then who will be responsible for it. And then implement that program probably in Q2 of fiscal year 2025. Our seventh goal is to plan, develop, and implement an organization-wide communication plan and protocols. The communication strategy rollout is being reviewed and will hopefully be enacted in Q1 of 2025. Want to complete a webpage review and update by Q2 2025, and then initiate an incremental rollout of a social media program that will hopefully begin in Q1 of 2025. Our eighth goal is to implement and develop an organizational-wide strategic financial plan. And to do that, we need to complete and update all departments' strategic plans and review and update strategic plans annually. And we have quite a few departments that have completed their strategic plans and a few that process is still ongoing. Part of that is going to be identifying funding gaps and developing plans to address those funding gaps. And then we'll take all of those strategic plans and integrate them into a countywide strategic plan. And then the final task underneath this would be to implement a community support funding plan. So those are items that the county supports in the community, and determine the appropriate amount of dollars to support that, as well as the process. Our final goal, which was added this year, is to prioritize public safety. And that is to provide modern facilities, which will be accomplished with the implementation plan. Putting the Justice Center online. Modernizing the fleet was initiated in fiscal year 24 with the use of the Oregon American Rescue Plan Act dollars that the county received to purchase new vehicles. We are still receiving those vehicles. They're all making their way through upfit and are slowly being put online in the sheriff's office. And then finally, maintaining competitive compensation with the compensation study that's happening right now. They are a part of that, as well as the request to open the negotiations early that the county is considering for the sheriff's office deputies bargaining unit, as well as the one that will soon open with the Sergeants Association unit. So moving on to the budget, some notable budget changes in fiscal year 2025 include the budget being reduced by nearly 15.1 million, which is about 10%. The total county budget is less this year due to reduced capital spending relative to fiscal year 2024, which includes the Justice Center project, which is being wrapped up. As mentioned later, capital spending is significantly reduced relative to fiscal year 2024. However, spending in other categories, including personnel, materials and services, and special payments are all greater in fiscal year 25. Personnel costs increased about $1 million across the organization, which is about 3.7%. Although we reduced the number of full-time positions, an increase in personnel costs are due to pay increases from annual salary and discretionary pay step increases, update to the pay ranges and a budgeted COLA, and budgeted increases to medical expenses or medical benefit expenses, which we will also discuss later. Materials and services increased about $1.5 million, which is 5% across the county. Materials and services are increased due to the addition of the Justice Center and some inflationary impacts across the county. As we mentioned before, capital outlay decreased significantly, about 69%. The reduction in capital outlay is driven by $26.5 million reduction in the capital projects fund due to the completion of the Justice Center in late June or early July. Special payments increased about 2.8%, and the special payments in 2025 are primarily the collection and disbursement of payments in lieu of taxes from the data centers. The fiscal year 2025 the county budget totals $139,502,000, with a general fund budget of $23,335,000. The budget includes $82,097,000 in appropriations or expenditure authority, an additional $31,133,000 in contingency, which is potential spending authority, and $26,272,000 in funds that are reserved for future expenditures. That means that our budget breaks down roughly, as you can see, into 59% for expenditures, 22% in contingency, and 19% in reserves. Listen, yeah, I forgot to start my time.
You got it.
Perfect. So as you can see, the county has made some significant strides post-COVID with recruitment and retention. However, the labor market has become much more dynamic, and as a result, we need to continually monitor the market closely and likely make incremental adjustments to remain competitive. The organization has enhanced its recruiting and retention efforts by expanding its interviewing and selection process, implementing exit interviews, providing benefits for lateral position hires, and is nearing the end of the process of a compensation study, as well as updating vacation accrual benefits for existing employees. The county is currently in contract negotiations with the road department bargaining unit and is considering a request to open negotiations early for the Sheriff's Office Deputies Association. Discussions with the new sergeant's bargaining unit will also occur in the near future. To meet desired service levels and actions to address employee recruiting and retention efforts and retain financial sustainability, the budget includes adjustments that result in a net reduction of 6.23 full-time equivalent or FTE positions. All reductions in positions were a result of retirements or removing positions that were already vacant with 0 layoffs. A few significant items of note are the anticipated increase to health insurance costs of 12.5%. The county had received an 18-month no rate adjustment commitment in July and anticipates a total increase of 25% in January 2025. So as our fiscal year splits the year in half, we have a 12.5% in 2025. The deputy district attorneys also became eligible for PERS with no change in the PERS retirement rate contribution for 2023 to 2025 for qualified staff in the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office. And that was the deputy district attorneys that became eligible for PERS. Another enhancement to the employee experience at the county is the implementation of a new human resources information system
It did, thank you. And then I want to start the video, if you could start my video as well.
Starting the video on there or?
On here, yeah, that way the owl will pick up everybody. So. Yes. Let's just do a quick little. Hello, hello, hello.
I don't know how to let it do the. How about you start your video now, and then I'll undo the video. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, everybody, for bearing with us.
Golden.
All right, can everybody online hear us again? Open to the chat. Well, we will proceed. All right,
Ready?
sorry to interrupt the continuity of that.
It's fine, I need the break anyway. All right. So moving on to the Justice Center, which is expected to mostly be completed by the end of fiscal year 2024, with minimal items remaining in fiscal year 25. And capital outlay of $150,000 in facilities is budgeted to take care of emergent repair items that pop up on buildings as they rise. During late fiscal year 2023, the court was presented with a high-level programming and space allocation report of a draft master facilities plan, which identified current and projected space needs of the county clerk, finance, assessor, community development, legal, HR, and administration, IT, facilities, and the health and human services operations. This report analyzed the space available in the historic courthouse against those space needs. The capital projects budget includes funding to move to subsequent phases of work, including the architectural design and engineering to renovate the old courthouse and complete the facilities master plan. Moving on to vehicles and equipment. Vehicles and equipment are budgeted across several funds, including the road department, sheriff's office, community development, clerk, landfill, and fairgrounds. Details of those items will also be discussed in each department's presentation. However, major items of note include the mobile incident command post for the sheriff's office, which is being funded by federal Title III dollars that the county has received, as well as a refit of a motor grader for the road department. These purchases are anticipated to realize a reduction in operating costs for the first few years after replacement or purchase, as less maintenance is anticipated on equipment and vehicles, as well as replacement items being more efficient and having increased capabilities. Technology included in capital outlay encompasses the items named in the Information Technology Strategic Roadmap that was adopted in fiscal year 24, which will utilize the Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds and include the Human Resource Information System and Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP software, as well as some security upgrades. Additionally, pictometry imagery is also included in capital outlay for GIS. Operating costs are anticipated to be nominal for these investments, as they are replacing current maintenance agreements with software as a service agreements at similar costs. The fiscal year 2025 countywide resources totals $139,502,000 with a general fund budget of $23,335,000. The budget includes $41.7 million of intergovernmental payments, $12.8 million in property taxes, $7.6 million in internal service fees, $8.4 million in transfers, $6.1 million in licenses, permits, and fees, $3.6 million in other taxes, 1.5 million in charges for services, and 2.9 million in miscellaneous revenues. The budget includes the county levying its full operating levy of $3.8702 per 1,000 of assessed value, estimated to generate the 12.6 million, together with a dollar levy of $619,000 for debt service, with an estimated rate of 19.03 cents per 1,000 of assessed value, for a total estimated rate of $4.0605 per 1,000 of assessed value. There is an estimated decrease of 0.012 cents per 1,000 of assessed value over the prior year. Considering inflationary pressure, all county user fees are undergoing a review process by each department in conjunction with finance to ensure that the fees adequately cover the costs of services provided. This includes analysis by the finance staff of billing rates for outside contracts to ensure that departments are utilizing accurate billing rates. It's anticipated that the updated fee schedule will be presented at the June 5th Board of Commissioners meeting. Finally, the county received $6 million from the federal government in a one-time allocation of Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund, or LATCF dollars, in fiscal year 23 and 24. This resource is allocated over fiscal years 2024 to 2027, with 1.4 million allocated in fiscal year 24, increasing 6% per year to 1.6 million in fiscal year 2027. In closing, I would like to thank all county employees, commissioners, committee members, staff, and consultants for their hard work and dedication through this last year. We've achieved some amazing things and we have a great future ahead of us.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can't answer questions, but there might be things answered in department presentation, so happy to answer anything that you want to ask them.
Any questions? We can. I appreciate the budget message and the detail that went into.
And that was a little long, so I appreciate you hanging in there. It's a lot of words. But we've made some really great progress this year and I'm really glad to be able to highlight it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reading for you.
There's a lot of writing. I'm not great on my feet. Andy's significantly better at that than me after I fall out.
Okay, I am trying to put us back on this one being the primary intent is the. Okay, sorry. Well done. All right, we are now moving. We are now moving into the more department-specific portion of budget presentations. So what you can expect, we'll start with general fund, but we do have department heads scheduled to come in on a pretty tight schedule, where you'll be hearing each budget every 5 or so minutes. So that gives us time to give you numbers for the department head to give you the highlights, challenges, review of their services. There will be a brief time immediately following for your questions, but in order to keep the schedule going with everybody who's in and out, those questions will be brief. If there are significant questions that still need to be fleshed out, we can make note of those. You will have time to ask questions and discuss amongst yourselves. If the department head is no longer here, we will take those questions and make sure we get an answer returned to you for the next meeting. So if that will work for you, I think that will keep at least us moving through the content, but we don't want to neglect the opportunity to answer your questions, if that makes sense. Okay, we're good? All right. So general fund, we'll get right into it. All right, general fund resources. The general fund is primarily a property tax supported fund. And you can see here's the summary of the resources. The most notable thing that I like to point out is that our beginning fund balance is estimated to be significantly larger going into fiscal 25 than it was in fiscal 24 budgets, in part because we carried over more money than anticipated into the current year.
And then also our spending has been less in some areas and our revenue has been higher. So that combination sets us up in a very strong position going into fiscal 25. The other thing I really wanted to highlight for this particular fund, is that the internal service fees are higher in fiscal 25 with the implementation of the IT strategic roadmap for both HR, IT, and finance. We have some software overlap. So there is a period of transition where we have to keep our old softwares as we're implementing new softwares. And so we feel like the internal service fees are a little bit higher than inflation because of some of that transitional cost. We anticipate those will eventually drop off as we implement new systems. So in the future, we hope that goes back down. As far as fund requirements go, the general fund is appropriated by department, and you will be hearing more information about each department. But one piece I do want to highlight are the pieces that we don't put in department, in particular down at special payments of $942,000. So those dollars are for the data center payment in lieu of taxes pass-throughs that go to the city of Prineville and our fire district. The transfers that we appropriate in general fund are the general fund support to veteran services, health department, and the fairgrounds. And then again, I'd like to highlight that contingency has grown significantly in fiscal year 25. We anticipate a nice healthy contingency there. One of the components of the general fund budget is this non-departmental budget. That personnel cost is our tool to facilitate the Crooked River watershed personnel. Is it an IGA? Or some sort of agreement that we have with that entity. So the county pays for them, they give us the resource for the salaries, and the county covers the benefits. So we just use this general fund, non-departmental as the mechanism for that. In materials and services, we are continuing, you can see that we're proposing about 100,000 more in the budget for materials and services. So we are planning to continue in budget the county support for the soil and water conservation district, the Humane Society. There's a number of things that the county gives money to every year, as well as an additional $100,000 budget for the Board of Commissioners to consider for community support. So I know Christina mentioned that earlier, but that is something that will continue to be fleshed out. Are there any questions about that in particular? Okay, go ahead, Christina. Sure.
So our American Rescue Plan Act funds, you can see we received them in 2022 and we are spending them down as required. So for fiscal year 25, the IT portion of the ARPA funds that are remaining are to finish the ERP and HRIS systems, as well as the consultants related to those projects. The Justice Center is support for facilities to support the vacated buildings, as well as the state's portion of the operating costs for the Justice Center building. The compensation in the tax funds is for the county manager and recruitment of that position. So I know there's a lot of numbers up here, but the county's made some significant investments with those ARPA dollars. That kind of gives you an overview of where they're spent. And this includes both the federal dollars that were received as well as the dollars that were passed through from the state. Do you want any questions on that one?
Any questions?
Any questions on this one?
Okay. Natural resources is a small budget within the general fund, and it funds the part-time work of the county's natural resources manager. So this allows the FTE for that, as well as the cost of attending like the Association of Counties meetings and being a part of, what the county needs. So it's a pretty straightforward budget. If there's any questions though. Okay. So we move on to the internal service departments, which all, let's do. Yeah.
So our internal service departments are departments that provide services to other departments within the county on a cost recovery basis. These departments have minimal revenue outside the recovery of their services to those other departments. So you can see we have administration and the board of commissioners, our legal counsel, human resources, finance, and information technology are all contained within the general fund. And then facilities is in its own internal service fund on its own. So for the administration and board of commissioners department in the general fund, you can see that we have a fairly significant change in personnel, and that is due to the addition of that county manager position. Materials and services reduced a little bit, and that is also the transition to the county manager position, going from a contracted service into a higher position for the county. In 2024, I had previously talked about that governance model changed, and the primary goal of this department is really to deliver the best level of service with our available resources.
Any questions?
What's the status of the county manager position?
Yeah, so we are right now in the process of working with a recruiting firm to nail down what that position looks like and exactly what we want them to go recruit for. And we anticipate that wrapping up here fairly shortly to be able to be posted and them to go hire a person.
Sorry, any other questions? Okay. Eric, you're up, if you want to speak.
You are welcome to stand.
If you stand about the
Around
vicinity of
up
this
here.
table, the owl will see you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Lane. I'm the county legal counsel. I think I've met most of you, but if I haven't met you, please meet me. Our office is, as Jamie indicated, relatively straightforward. We don't have a lot of revenue that draws in. We have some small revenue streams for things like public records requests. Or occasionally we will receive attorney's fees if the county initiates and prevails in litigation. But the vast majority of our revenue comes from internal services fees. For that matter, the vast majority of our expenses are for the 3 people that work in our department. We have a comparatively small portion of our budget, which accounts for things like licensing, office supplies, and an account that we use if we ever need to engage outside legal counsel. For instance, if we ever need to receive some expertise on a topic that one of us is not already familiar with. We anticipate that we're going to be fully staffed for the rest of the fiscal year. I will say again, and commissioners have already heard this, there is no department head anywhere in the county who is more fortunate with who he has to work with than I am. John and Alex, and before Alex, Lindsay, were just wonderful at their jobs, and I'm very grateful for them. One thing that we have tried to undertake this year, and we're hoping to initiate in the next few months, is to increase the frequency of staff trainings on a variety of different legal topics. The next county court meeting or city board of commissioners meeting, we're anticipating that an ordinance updating the county's procurement code will be approved, and if it's approved, then we have some training which we would like to initiate for staff members so they know what to do, how to spend the county's money, and how to avoid some what I'll call rookie mistakes, especially if they're not familiar with Oregon procurement rules. Another training we anticipate is on public records requests. There are a lot of traps from the unwary on that particular subject. One unfortunate truth over the last 12 months is that the county has seen an increase in the number of litigation that it has had to file and participate in. Some of them are comparatively modest. Our office is now prosecuting dogs as a public nuisance case. Those usually have a fine somewhere in the range of $265 per incident, so they're comparatively modest. But they're very important to the members of the public who have such complaints. Other instances of litigation are comparatively quite significant, including some current litigation that the commissioners are familiar with. With that, I'm happy to answer any sort of questions you might have.
I see that you have some work around the the changing commissioner, status and all of that, and documents, forms, operative documents, all of that. So are those like just nomenclature changes, or is there substance to those that impact?
Yeah, it's a good question. The vast majority of those changes will be nomenclature. So for instance, the county code and ordinances all use the phrase county court, and it would make sense to update that and reflect its board of commissioners. In some rare instances, there will be legal significance. So for instance, under our county employee handbook, the office of county judge has certain responsibilities. Like, just as an example, it is the responsibility of county judge to say there's inclement weather, so we're having a early closure. In that case, it would make sense to update the nomenclature to reflect that that position doesn't exist anymore. And so there are a few small instances where there is legal significance, but by and large, no, it is mostly just changing names.
Thank you.
The last thing I'll say is, once again, I want to thank the finance staff for all the help they have offered me in this budget process. Jamie, Christina, and everyone who's been working with them. It's been a great help, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron.
So one thing I did need to mention, sorry, when I was giving the general fund update, in general, personnel costs, and Christina mentioned it too, have gone up by inflation and health insurance increases, things like that. So unless there is a change in FTE, I'm probably not gonna highlight that there's been a change of personnel costs in every single budget. So just a little ground rule there, I guess, unless you want me to repeat it every single time, but I know you guys can see that it's increased. I will just highlight if it's increased because of FTE, otherwise just assume it's step increases, COLAs, insurance, inflation, et cetera. Okay? Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the Human Resources Department. Human Resources has the mammoth task of implementing our HR strategic roadmap, which, along with the IT strategic roadmap, includes implementation of that human resources information system, which the county really needs. In addition to that, and part of that will be updating job descriptions. We're also in the process of compensation study update, which will be implemented by Human Resources and Finance. And then another goal when we become fully staffed in Human Resources is to have all of our HR staff obtain their SHRM certification. And SHRM stands for the Society for Human Resources Management. So as you can see, as you mentioned, personnel has the typical adjustments for inflation as well as the health insurance. Materials and services increased basically on inflation, and then the capital outlay is that HRIS system. As far as finance goes, we have an increase in personnel due to the change of a position that had previously been the senior accountant into an accounting manager position. That position had been vacant since last July. Additionally, we will continue the implementation of our new ERP system and the updated chart of accounts. We're also reviewing those fees and charges schedules for all of the departments and doing the billing rate calculations to ensure we are doing full cost recovery. We will continue items on the finance department assessment punch list that was done in 2021. Then we're going to expand centralized billing for receivables with our new accounts receivable software and really streamline that for the departments we're able to. Some other increases you'll notice are across materials and services, and that is due to a little bit of overlap between our current ERP system and what will be our new ERP system as we slowly roll modules on. And capital outlay is the rest of the payments for the new ERP system. We also have some consulting services included in materials and services related to the ERP system. That consulting, as well as the rest of the capital outlay, are covered by those American Rescue Plan Act dollars. So I anticipate that decreasing a bit in the next year.
Any questions?
I do have a general question, just to follow up to your comment about the personnel charges. So as a theme throughout the entire budget, I keyed in on a lot of personnel, labor charges associated. And I understand there's an increase in cost for healthcare and also step increases. But I would have expected to see a little more consistency in general between the different departments. If healthcare is going up 25%, then that's a 25% less for all FTEs, right? And if we're doing a wage analysis, you'd expect wage analysis to be consistent. Not completely consistent, but you would see consistency. And, looking at this budget specifically, you budgeted 880 or
Thousand,
yes, in 24, and your spend was 797. However, it looks like you went ahead and put lift on your budgeted amount for 24 instead of your estimate for year end for your labor going forward. So I'm a little torn as to how we continue to raise on the estimated cost for personnel.
It's a little bit tricky because we've had a vacant position since the beginning of 2024, so my year-end estimate doesn't include that position.
Could we assume that several of the variations are due to underemployment tailwinds?
That's part of it as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
So maybe it might be helpful then to give you some context. So, that year-end estimate column is how we anticipate the year ending. And we do that just to give ourselves a better estimate for what carries forward.
Right.
So we have that piece. When we are doing personnel budgeting, we are looking at the actual, if it's a filled position, we're looking at the actual person who fills that position, the grade and step they are currently, or the one they are going to be on for the fiscal year. We will include their exact benefit elections. So in theory, you could have a department full of people who don't take family insurance. They only take, just themselves, or maybe them and their spouse, or maybe just them and their dependents. So we actually budget based on their exact election, which fluctuates dramatically.
Okay.
So you may not see an exact increase because it just depends on what they elected. And then some of our departments have a higher percentage of people who have been here a very long time. So they are not getting a step increase because they are topped out. They are only receiving a COLA increase.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it's not as simple as just, we should be able to transparently see it. We have all that detail in backup that generates all these numbers, but it's a little bit more complicated beast than that.
but that's a really good question.
Yeah,
It just looks like a stretch. If we budget 880 and we come in at 797. Why would we budget 968 for the following calendar year? So,
Yeah,
your
so-
explanation helps.
yeah, so those dollars are what are needed, if we're anticipating the same people are continue to be employed at their current steps and grades. For the vacant positions, we tend to budget a mid-grade wage. We don't necessarily expect somebody who's coming in at step one, we also don't necessarily budget for somebody on the highest step, because that would inflate our budgets. And then we tend to, because the health insurance costs do swing so dramatically, we do budget that if the person elected a family coverage, we have enough budget to cover it. So that also can impact our year-end estimate. Chances are good. I think we actually may have had the vacancy in fiscal 24 budget. And so we would have budgeted full insurance for that person as well. If they came in and didn't elect that, and then they left, or whatever, something changed, then it makes our estimates look really low.
Can I ask you kind of a follow-up question to better kind of? I appreciate you getting really granular with each
Yeah.
department and the individuals and the insurance and everything else. If the position was not filled where it's not currently as we approach fiscal year end, is it fully budgeted for the next year anyway? And you haven't done anything. So what we're looking at here, go back to my point about underemployment tailwinds, is that this current year, and probably last year, and in the future, you're kind of, because there will continue to be the underemployment tailwinds, you're kind of building in a buffer in essence that you may anticipate in certain departments where we don't fill those, the sheriffs or whatever, you're gonna come in and see a fiscal year estimate that looks a lot like the adjusted budget differentiation in the current year. Would that be a general assumption?
Potentially, yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, we keep the budget there because we want the authorized position. So as long as the need exists, we budget for it. So there are some budgets where we have pulled out vacant positions. Those personnel budgets have decreased because we are no longer holding
The
that.
one department is your community development.
Primarily. Does that help give context for the rest of the personnel piece?
It does for me.
Okay, everybody else?
Yeah,
good?
yeah, I saw that too and appreciate that. And my question would have been, which you just answered. How aggressively are departments paying attention to eliminating positions that have been vacant for a long time and may not be necessary? I get that they were authorized, but it can be kind of this buffer thing that's not managed well.
So those are conversations that we have with departments during budget process. So it's part of that budget calendar that's kind of outlined in your book. We do meet one-on-one with every department. We give them, here's the personnel that we have currently. We ask, are there changes needed? Whether that means continuing, like for the community development department's perfect example of,
Right.
they're like, yeah, based on workload, we don't need these positions right now. So we pulled those ones out. So there's definitely that conversation back and forth about what is or isn't needed. There's also conversations about, we can't function with what we have. What are our options? And it's leadership, the county manager will have a big role. The commissioners have a role in hearing what the new requests are, and then we present them to you in the budget. So there's still items that can be discussed, for certain items that you feel like that seems off base, or that seems like, why did we do it that way? Definitely ask questions about it, but we do have the departments, defend is too strong a word, but they have discussions, but we discuss each needed element, whether it's, the contract services, whether it's personnel, so,
Yeah, I get that.
yeah.
I get that. And it's easier to eliminate a position than to get one back. Right?
Right, in theory. So for community development, their conversation is somewhat simpler because it's a fee-based, we'll get to that, but sorry, I don't wanna get out of order here, but when you have an increase of fees, it's very easy to justify it. We have this much more workload, as evidenced by this much more revenue, we need another position. That's an easier conversation that we can do mid-year if need be to authorize positions, or we do it during the next budget cycle, and you'll hear about it again.
And I'm happy to announce in my case, we did find a county manager, and she was actually in the back with us, and we're really excited to have her. That's Lisa. So,
Anyway, it's a great question, you guys. Okay, anything else on finance? Good, all right, Steven, you are up. We don't have to say that much.
Stephen Tellis, Chief Information Officer. Good morning, thanks for the time today. So staffing overall from IT, you'll see a big difference between year-end estimate and budget and then proposed. We have 3 open roles that we're currently recruiting for, so that's one of the big differences there. They were budgeted, we filled one, so just recently, I think today is day 3 for so I expect that number will align much more with 2025 going forward when we fill those roles. Materials and services, you can see that goes up. We ourselves are moving to a lot more software cloud-based platforms, so transition time there as well when you're moving from legacy systems to new. And then capital outlay has gone down. That's a lot of, there's some network upgrades in there, and the majority of what you saw prior years for the Justice Center build out the 300K there for the new networks, the access points, the server, and those types of things. So you'll see the first bullet point is strategic roadmap, continued implementation. So we're running along that strategic roadmap that was put together in 2023. And a lot of the staff pieces are part of that. The HRIS is part of that. The ERP is part of that. So that's sort of the catch-all, that first bullet point. Select network hardware upgrades. We are going through each department, visiting the buildings and taking an inventory of a lot of the network equipment that's sitting in the old closets, kind of stacked there, collecting dust and making sure that we're upgrading those as necessary. a lot of times when that hardware kind of sits there running back there, people forget about it. We want to make sure all those are up to date and secure, moving forward. Mentioned the HRIS and finance ERP, those are two big implementations happening right now with involvement with IT. Technology stack modernization, so, we have our Nutanix data center, we're moving that to the Justice Center, making some network upgrades there, and also monitoring what the best path is forward. Right now, Nutanix is actually quite a great solution. It allows us to host things here to where we're not paying fees for it, but also we have the data redundancy and cloud backup. So if something were to happen to our data center, we can pull a snapshot from the cloud geographically in a different area, pull it in and get us back up to speed, based on a snapshot within. Well, we tested, but hopefully like within a day in the worst case scenario. GIS hardware software platform, so IT includes GIS, and we are looking at upgrading the servers that our GIS software running this I believe it's SQL 2016, it's end of life. Microsoft has extended the service, but we're moving that to a new SQL. Microsoft SQL is the server foundation that runs on, and then kind of build on top of it. So we're moving that to a supported platform this year. And again, focus on increased information security standards and practices. This is becoming much more important. Everything that we do is security first. We want to make sure that the things that we're doing are secure in the most up-to-date way. And you've heard me talk about single sign-on with Okta, those types of things, 2FA, and also biometric scanning and those types of blocking features. So it takes your thumbprint, that type of thing. So, the old username and password things, we're trying to go away from the sticky notes and making sure that we're using much more secure methods for logging in to systems and those types of things. Any questions?
I have one. As related to your last bullet there, obviously, information security is top of mind, right? So do we leverage outside consulting to come in to pen test or validate our controls and procedures for our data?
Yeah, so not yet, but we're doing that. That's why that's a bullet point for this year. I do have some consulting budget time. So we have an infotech is in the budget, which is an outside resource, like kind of like Forrester, for best practices. And then I do kind of have a service come in and do an audit of our security and then make recommendations on how to improve that security posture.
Fantastic.
With your personnel, it kind of looks like your IT director and your IT manager were combined. Is that fair enough to say?
Going forward, it's IT manager.
Yeah, okay, going forward as an IT manager, you took the director and quarter of the person and melded them into one. Okay. Could you speak to the function of the business analyst in that?
Yes, oh, yes, we just hired a business analyst, Laura, so it's a new role for the county. And the business analyst, think of them as like a workflow documentation, business to IT liaison. So this person isn't someone who, when your computer's not working, goes and checks out your computer. This person is focused on, she will be involved in the HR and IS platforms and workflows and how those databases talk to each other and integrations with other platforms as we move more and more county departments to newer hardware and software platforms. Those are going to talk and integrate, and security is going to be another piece of that. And that person, Laura, is really involved in taking a detailed look on workflows and the data that comes out and where does it need to go and does it need to transform into a different format to get over to that new application. So that's really the focus of the business system.
So it's the business of the IT function.
Yeah,
Analysis of how all that's working between departments.
Yeah, it's sort of a different concept than traditional IT. It's more business focused and workflow focused and documentation focused. So a business IT, a business systems analyst is someone who might say we have this system and facilities and we have our core IT system and they need to talk and what is that going to look like and what's that workflow going to look like and documenting that workflow so we have it.
Okay, and then the only other question I have is kind of similar to the personnel cost. From 570 estimated to 968.
Yeah.
Looks 2 new positions.
Yeah, we've been having a hard time filling those roles and they were new from the roadmap.
I see. So it's from the 925 to 968 facilities vacancy. Okay.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it. And finance team, thank you for helping me through this stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right, our last internal service department, and then there's a break, so bear with us a few more minutes, okay? So our facilities budget is the only internal service that is not contained within general fund. It is a fund completely contained by itself. So we're showing you both the resource and the requirement side of that. Of note, that 600,000 intergovernmental dollars, that was the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Christina mentioned, we're using that as a very intentional one-time investment into the facilities fund for the cost of maintaining the Justice Center in the first year. Because we've not necessarily set up the janitorial contracts. We don't know what the utilities costs fully are yet. And so we're using this to help balance that fund this year, keep things stable for the tenants of that building, as well as we have people moving out of buildings into the Justice Center, and those spaces still need to be maintained even though nobody lives there, offices there. And so that will help us also keep those baseline maintenance operations going. Down in the requirement side, personnel is going up by 1 FTE. Another tech is needed because of the additional square footage that we are adding in fiscal 25, specifically the Justice Center, but we have more square footage. Materials and services are going up. We're anticipating dramatically due to the addition of the utilities and service contracts for the Justice Center, plus just normal inflation. That 150,000 budgeted for capital outlay is for projects identified that do need maintenance or repair, or repairs that come up as needed to buildings. And then the debt service listed, we do run some of our facilities debt service, not the geo bonds, but other types of debt through our facilities fund. Is just a flow through, so we budgeted that mechanism here. And that was all I got for you there. Unless you have questions. What? Go, yeah.
Kind of like close it out.
No, I just said the numbers. I just said the numbers.
So we are at the very end of the process of hiring a new facilities director. The intent of that position is to really focus on our buildings rather than the capital projects, which is, we had a current facilities director that had a specialty in capital projects. So he had been kind of stretched across capital projects and facilities, and that is coming back just to facilities. We're adding that additional facilities tech, as Jamie mentioned, for the maintenance needs by increasing the building square footage of the Justice Center. We're going to utilize the space needs assessment to help facilitate a master facilities plan. That plan will include also initiating the design for the courthouse renovation and plans for buildings that are going to be vacated as part of the move into the Justice Center. I haven't answered the question.
Let's see, things with the courthouse, all of that, I think I read they were actually delayed because of state funding. It didn't occur, but that's not going to stop this part.
Correct. So all of this is going to move forward, and we want to be ready to move when we have the opportunity to do so.
So the facilities fund doesn't include any of the major construction projects. So the actual budget for the Justice Center construction is not part of this. The cost of maintaining it now transitions into this fund starting this fiscal year. So all the costs of construction have not been part of this facilities budget yet.
Design is not part of construction.
Correct. It's in our capital projects fund, so you'll see that later.
Are all of the buildings that you would potentially be vacating or are vacating municipally owned?
They are. Except for the health department, that one is owned by Mosaic, but that one is, I believe, they vacate flagrants. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it.
Any other questions? All right, I think we're ready for a break.
Really?
Okay.
All we get is 7 minutes.
So, yeah, can we say be back at 10:45?
Yeah.
Okay, 10:45.
That's unmuted, video is still on.
All right, 10:45, we're gonna get
You know, when the breaks are notoriously stressing out, you just look at the calendar. And not really think we got the output in time.
All right, it's time, 10:45.
Got a taskmaster.
Sorry to break so.
Oh.
All right, so we are now going to present the assessor's office. We have our assessor here. Just a quick overview of his numbers. Personnel does include the addition of a new appraiser, which I'm sure you can go into in more detail, and then materials and services, remaining software contracts, things like that. Materials and services is pretty much business as usual.
Any questions on the prior slide?
Oh, sorry.
You'll see there's some year-end dips there too, kind of like what you've been observing already, so I just thought, my 8:35 to 8:05 there, that's some staff member that's actually close to retiring, I'll say, and had asked to work instead of full-time, maybe 1.80 FTE, so we approved that and are benefiting from that person still being with us for as long as we can squeeze that time. And then also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the other portion of that is some Oregon paid leave time off for some other staff, so.
Yeah.
And then materials and services, that's some contractual changes that actually, so went down, but, it was budget approved in the 2024 adjust there that you see that we didn't actually utilize, due to some issues, software issues that we didn't have to, use that portion of the revenue. So that's still in our budget for this year, so. Then again, the major change is new staff member. And very little change in material and services, other than both of those categories actually are changing again, like you've been hearing, due to the, wages and benefits. And then the internal service fees that are going up, that's the bulk of, besides getting another staff person, that's the portion that's going up, so. Now, the next slide.
That staffing is, just volume based? That increase?
Yes, basically, yeah, so, what we've done is we've actually, brought this to the Board of Commissioners a few months ago, and like a pre-budget type meeting, and we've tracked some of our, reappraisal type, functions that we do, and what kind of revenue it, brings in or affects. And, basically, we're looking at, hey, we could actually cover new staff and then some, and then compound that basically the next year, then the next year. So, and volume, yes, we've actually, been a couple of members down. If you look at it in the scope of the last 15, 20 years, we used to be a staff of 10, we've been 8, we're gonna go to 9 at this point, so, yeah.
So how far have you have a cycle of valuation, have you fallen significantly behind, like say, years ago in the cycle?
Yeah, there is a good amount of behind valuation that occurs. Prior to measure 50 that's passed in 97, it was actually a state requirement that all 36 counties in Oregon reappraise on a 6-year cycle. Very few of the offices could get that done. And so measure 50 law actually changed that, eliminated that, but the state goal for us overall has still been a 6-year goal appraisal cycle. We've got some properties out there, there's, we're looking at 20,000 accounts range, and there's several thousand out there that have still not been visited for quite a few years, beyond the 6-year timeframe, I would say. So we are trying to catch up with that. Another other curves you get are also, staff either being cut, coming and going, and training new staff to our boom in the economy. And then we're not doing a reappraisal, we're actually picking up the new construction, because there's too much of it almost at times. And that's where you're consuming your time, you know, it's like, do we do a reappraisal and not gain much ground? Or do we actually go get the new house that they built? Because if we don't, then they're not gonna be happy, because the next year that's gonna be like omitted from the tax roll, and we're gonna have to go through that process, which is more time consuming and not something that the public likes to experience, so. Ask questions as I go, but just on the slide here overall, so we did do a software conversion about 3-4 years ago. We've completed that. But like I say here, it's similar to other software systems where there's still things to load behind the scenes. That's another one of our 5-year goals, is getting some of that implemented into the software program. We can still value, but some of the details aren't there. A quick example would be like our commercial and our industrial information is still antiquated in a physical paper jacket in the office. And so there's not much of that available is online. All you're gonna see is like a valued number, but any other characteristics or kind of features that could be kicked into the web through our software system, can't do it because it's not loaded behind the scenes yet, and never has, to be quite frank. And so that's been a kind of a long-term goal, but definitely a goal of mine, you know, in my tenure here to complete. So some things like that, they're time consuming for staff to load these valuation models, basically. So, but big goals there. Yeah, maintaining staff. It's always been a trick over the years, and keeping them. And then the new hire, I did want to comment on that position. So when we had chatted, you know, you guys approved a new appraiser. So I haven't had a chance to come back to you, because the new events have been that we have a staff person in the office interested in that position, so it would be a promotion to them. So we're gonna do that as our goal, and then hire out for that position, which is a front staff technician position, probably be at less of a cost that we anticipated, as opposed to going straight out trying to hire for an appraiser. So that's probably a good thing. We didn't know that when I first asked, and then, you know, word got out, oh, we got approved to hire another staff appraiser and this person, and it was unanimous within the office to go, yeah, we're all interested in seeing this person get a promotion and moving them into that field. So that's kind of my plan, as you know. So if there's any questions on that, let me know. But the county administrator has been aware of that for a while here and trying to get some of that information to you guys, but here we are. Services, well, I'm charged with statutorily to put market value on all real and personal property. Personal property is, you know, business personal property, and or items like mobile homes, and put a value on those. Our annual tax roll, and we are open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and we have a ton of information on the web that has been quite a good resource that is utilized all the time. So other than that, it's as is.
So does it take special expertise when it comes to data centers and personal property?
Yes, and actually those are state appraised. And the main reason of that is because there's an old state law that anything over $1 million is valued by the state. Now, that's like 20 years old or more. The state has shared with us.
When $1 million.
It hasn't, yeah, the law hasn't changed. We haven't got that one changed, but if you could look at that from maybe a $5 million perspective, that would help us instead of carrying a lot of the load. So, yeah, there's quite a few, you know, entities in our county that are state appraised, and Facebook and Apple are 2 of those. We assess the land, and then they do the structures and the.
That's commercial.
It's a commercial industrial type thing. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
That's all I have.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Nice to meet everybody.
Right, we'll move to the clerk's office. Okay, so clerk's numbers, personnel, no change in staffing there, this typical cost increases. In materials and services, you can see that our proposed budget is actually lower than current year. That is not a reduction of service. Instead, we are finding that there are specific archive and recording functions done by the clerk's office that qualify for restricted dollars for archiving and recording. And so we will talk about that fund in detail tomorrow. This is the clerk's special revenue fund, but we are able to utilize those resources. We're doing it as one time. Those funds have been growing, and so we're going to not have it affect this budget this year in the general fund. Instead, it will be done in the special revenue. So that is the only reason for a decrease there. All right, Cheryl.
All right, so part of the material and services, so we record, all land records for those of you who haven't been in my office. And we also do passports and marriage license, but our recorded documents is reduced probably just a little bit over 10% this last year, so revenue is down there. We also see kind of across the board, some of our other fees have reduced, or the volume of them have reduced by about 10%. We did have a change, all of our documents that people were purchasing copies of, we were for years in the fee schedule at 40 cents, and we made a change to match statute at 25 cents. So that's reflected this year. So some of those numbers that we were getting on computer prints are now just 25 cents instead of 40 cents. So that kind of, there's a little bit of
That's
a loss in revenue
page.
happening. So per page, yeah, per page fee, yeah. So we were anticipating with the slower recording, you would start seeing more foreclosed properties or foreclosure documents, and those are pretty big, so they take place of those bigger trustees with refinances or things like that, but we're not really seeing a lot of foreclosures yet. So from a community standpoint, I hope we don't, but we'll see. So, and then in my budget, of course, we always budget for 2 elections, a November election and a May election. Our May election in 2025 is a district election, and a large portion of that is paid back, but we budget for it anyway because if the county puts stuff on or other things, we end up absorbing a large portion of it. So just depends on that. So we've got both of those. Hopefully November is not too crazy. We have added a vote by mail scanning solution, and what that does is when your ballot comes into us, because we check every signature with your voter record, it's a scanner, and it scans a full image of the signature side, and then it'll pull that signature up with your voter record signature, so we're not having to manually key those in and flip them, so it saved me, a staff person, in a sense. We were needing to, the volume we have just over 21,000 registered voters, so the volume that we've got with those, that's hard for, 1 or 2 people to check all those ballots. Not that they all come back, but in November, we'll expect about 80% return. So, so that's a lot. And it's mostly on one person to do that because I'm busy answering questions and phone calls and replacing ballots, or I didn't get mine, or the dog ate it, or whatever. So, the front desk keeps me busy during that time. So, but that's a great system, and we're just kind of getting that, running through this election. So we do have a new state voter registration system coming. I've budgeted an approximate, cost for that. We'll have an annual fee that we pay to the state, and it's just a statewide system. The one we have has been around a long time, and that needs a lot. There's a lot of reports and a lot of information we would like it to do, and it just doesn't have that ability. So this new system is great. We've had a lot of training on it. They were supposed to incorporate it and have it ready for us this year in a rollout, and it didn't happen. So they're anticipating it to roll out in January of 25. So like I said, the fee that I had in there is just kind of an approximate, so.
Are all of the counties?
All of us, yeah, we're all into that same system. Right now, it's called OCVR, Oregon Centralized Voter Registration System. So, but then we're gonna go into the new one called Orbis, and it'll actually have the ability to incorporate like the GIS mapping and stuff, so we can, put a thing in it, will show how many registered voters at what households, and it'll actually put them on a GIS-based map. So you can kind of see who's there, because we have people that register as their primary residence, as their business, and that's really not. It needs to be where they actually live. so they can get into the right district. So that will kind of help us with a lot of that. I mean, it's a small area, so we kind of know what those are. But that will help us. There's just lots of great things that we can customize reports, and it's gonna be a really good system. So we're excited about it. It's just, as it's being built, there's a lot of testing, and a lot of testing failed. So we're working through it. So hopefully it's ready to go in January. And then just preparing for courthouse remodel. I've been trying to scan as much as we can scan so that we'll have access to that, so I don't physically need to have it, whatever's in my vault. And statute requires that I keep a lot of things permanently, which is either in hard copy or microfilm, which is black and white. So, but there are some things that come to me in color that we still want to see. So we've been trying to find ways to do those, so we'll still have access to them, if we have to be out of the building. So we've been doing a lot of, backup archiving and stuff for things that I have physically. And then, so like I mentioned before, all the services in our office, the recording, our signature verification on elections, all our public records requests, passports, everything like that, we do everything timely, so it's done within hours of when that document or ballot comes in or whatever. So we don't have anything that lasts for days. It's quick turnaround time, so with everything. And we do a lot of public records requests. We've got 2 staff that kind of fill those. We're looking at possibly some new things. My main program is called Helion that we pay for, that does all of our reporting and all of our marriage licenses and all of our accounting stuff. They have a couple new products to roll out hopefully for us. So I budgeted for kind of one of those. It's just a small one. And that will be something that will help us with public records requests in the future. So you guys have any questions for me?
I have a question.
Yes.
The new Orbis application,
yes.
is that managed by the state of Oregon and deployed by the state of Oregon?
It is a combination of Secretary of State's office and the Oregon Association of County Clerks. We kind of team up together with that.
Okay.
Our prior system was actually exclusively built by clerks, and then they're just kind of a partner with us. This has kind of been more, I think the Secretary of State's kind of taken the lead a little bit more on it because of the connections that they have. But we've all of the clerks and election officials throughout the state have been heavily involved in the creation and the development of that.
So who do we pay as software as a service for that?
So that is coming through, I was trying to think of I think it's B-Pro, but I think they have another name, company that's doing that. I could get you that actual information, but right now it's, like I said, it's through the state. That the company is, it's one that's done, they've done Washington, they've done, I think, Arizona, they've done several other ones, but
Okay,
have to customize it for us because we're different.
so it's not a one-off that the state of Oregon's developing?
Oh, no,
It's
no, it's a
larger-
company that does these programs for
You
various
don't have
states.
confidence?
Correct. Correct. Well, and to be honest with you, not that I have great confidence in them either, they do a portion, or they see a portion of our system or what they use it for, because they have state candidates and state, stuff, but they don't process the ballots. They don't send out the ballots. They don't have anything to do with the tally part and how it talks to our tabulators and all of that, because everything is done in each county. So there's a huge piece of it that they don't see. All the voter registration that lies upon our shoulders, not theirs. So they kind of, they have a little piece in the system, but not nearly the nuts and bolts that we need. And so they don't really know what we need until we speak up and say, hey, it doesn't do this. It's got to do this. It's got to do this. So yeah, we've been very, very, very involved in that development. So, yeah. Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Right. Erica. So juvenile department, the personnel costs are increasing because we are turning what has been a vacant part-time counselor position into a full-time benefited counselor position. So Erica can describe more about specifics of that. And then materials and services is very much business as usual, just inflationary increases. The reason there's no capital outlay in fiscal 25 is because we've spent the last 2 years replacing some outdated vehicles. They are replaced, And so, we do not have a replacement need in fiscal year 25. You're set for at least a year or two, so. Any questions specifically about the dollars? Okay.
We've talked a lot in here about, crime going up and sort of what we see trending in Crook County. But in April, the Department of Justice put out, this actually comes from, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. In April, they sent, we attended a PowerPoint. And so this is the national trends that are going on currently. And so as you can see, we're not, I guess, different than the rest of the country. Crime is going up everywhere. And anecdotally, the thought is that a lot of this is youth that did not spend their formative years in the classroom due to COVID. So, I don't know that there's any evidence quite pushed on that, but I know they're trying to figure out sort of what is going on here and why we have such an increase in crime. But that goes back to the full-time position, moving that half-time position to a full-time position. Our current numbers in Crook County, we have about 84 formal referrals this year. And so those are referrals only from like law enforcement. We know that isn't counting the prevention or the truancy type referrals. And over a third of those have drug and alcohol problems. Those youth have STD issues. And so we're struggling right now to fill that gap with some treatment needs that the state doesn't currently have for juveniles. And so, it would be very beneficial for this community to have somebody maybe in our department that is able to, do those drug and alcohol assessments and some of that treatment in-house versus looking for them to go outwards and going another places to find their treatment. They can do them safely.
Are you ready for this?
I am sorry, yes. So what I just talked about, increased needs in the community. Statewide, we've seen a huge decrease in treatment facilities, whether that be mental health or drug and alcohol. Most places are working at a third capacity since pre-COVID, so most of that is due to staffing. And a lot of that is just due to the fact that we didn't have referrals like we used to have. And now with the referrals jumping the way they are, it's that catch-up game. So just trying to sort of balance that out. Is what the state is focused on. That goes hand in hand with the increased budget for detention and psychological exams. We're seeing a lot more mentally ill youth in our community. I've stated in past meetings, we have more mental health youth than we've seen in decades. We currently have about 6 to 8 youth that are in full psychosis, which is a number we've never seen before here. So with that goes continued staff training. We've been sending our staff to sex offender training, to mental health trainings, to self-care trainings. I've only done 1 or 2 of those, but with these kids that are just so acute and have so many needs, the burnout is real. You're not just dealing with kids that can go, to one treatment facility and have their needs met. These kids have multifaceted issues going on. With the fix of ballot measure 110, House Bill 4002, we are going to have a number of youth coming into our system that were not coming into our systems with different drug and alcohol issues. We had marijuana and alcohol as a citation. However, those kids that are using harder drugs with measure 110, we weren't dealing with those youth. And now with the fix with 4002, we will be seeing those youth as well. And then that staff vacancy, we're hoping to fill the certified drug and alcohol counselor so that we can have some of those needs met in-house. We currently are working with Rimrock. Rimrock runs their outpatient group, which they just started. This is week 2, and they actually run that in our office. So with the new move to the new building, we're gonna be able to house that for them. Right now, they have, their only outpatient is only with youth that are currently on supervision. And so they're hoping to maybe expand that. But for the youth that are on supervision, it has been helpful to have them in-house and in our building and have in those classes that we can address some of those needs as they come up during group. I feel like I talked really fast. I was trying to be very good to you guys. You guys have any questions?
Can you relate more of the decreased state services that you're having to now supplement?
So, for example, for mental health, for example, we, for our bed is at Children's Farm, which is in Corvallis. That's where our, like our mental health state hospital would be for juveniles. They're working at less than a third capacity of the youth they used to take, and they cannot meet the needs of the very, very ill youth because of the staffing that they do have. So right now, we're in a situation where we have our very, most ill youth that are in the community because there's no place to house them. And so we've been having to do psychologicals, you know, work with parents and get the families into counseling and mental health so that they can deal with their youth. That goes back to, unfortunately, sometimes those kids youth end up in detention, right? Or they end up in jail when you're dealing with adults because they aren't getting the treatment they need. And so it's very hard to serve those youth here in the community, when there's no place to put them.
Pardon my ignorance here. Did we not receive $110 to help compensate for this issue?
We did, however, those were mostly dealt with adult services. And so juvenile, so we're sort of kept out of that, and then this is the same fix for 4,002, it mostly focuses on adults. What we've done is we've increased our diversion programming, so we have a lot of youth that we're trying to keep out of the court system for those petty crimes and for those, you know, for those drug and alcohol issues. We're trying to increase our, like I said, our drug and alcohol classes. I'm training my staff in order to do some workbooks. We get some change company books that, you know, they're going through with youth, and trying to sort of supplement that lack in our community. But those dollars, yes, they did come to our community, but those dollars are mostly focused on adults and adult care.
Okay. Thank you.
Question. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so just to keep everybody aware, it's gonna crunch your discussion time after all this. We will have plenty of discussion time tomorrow, but just letting you know. So our DA's office, our district attorney is not able to be here today, so the sheriff is willing to stand in for her, so.
I'm probably not who you expected to see.
She's at a training, right?
She's actually teaching me.
Oh, she's teaching a class. You guys know more than I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll quickly run through her numbers. You can see the fiscal 24 is dramatically lower than what we budgeted for fiscal 24, as well as what we budgeted in fiscal 25. This is primarily due to staffing vacancies. We want to have authorized positions there to be fully staffed with our DDAs. So we continue to budget those in hopes that we will attract and retain them. And then one change in addition to just inflation costs is our DDAs are now on first. So that will hopefully create a better way of attracting and retaining those positions in particular. The materials and services budget is mostly inflation, but it does include some increase to software and medical examiner contracts, as well as insurance, like a liability type insurance, specifically covering the deputy district attorneys, DDA's deputy district attorney, more acronyms. And this is one of the departments that will be moving to the new Justice Center. Okay.
Okay, so the district attorney's job is obviously to prosecute offenders, both juvenile and adult. This is a list of the other things that their office is responsible for handling. I just wanted to touch on some, because some of them are really time consuming, like how the victims advocates section, assisting victims of crime. And then they also very, very heavily involved with drug court, and mental health courts, especially courts in the county. So they have involvement with that quite a bit. The DA also chairs the multidisciplinary team for child abuse. And also she's the coordinator of the chairman for the local public safety coordinating council, which is a group of individuals from all over different parts of the county and public that participate in regular meetings and decide how funds are spent as far as programs through our community corrections office largely. And also
time consuming as the use of force investigation that the DA would be involved in, and making rulings on those that would be like officer involved shootings, which unfortunately we had one here a few years ago, but it's been a lot of time for the DA's office to put that all together. Brady reviews, if you're not familiar with what a Brady review is, it's whenever a law enforcement officer is charged with something that's lying, for instance, or misconduct that they did, or the DA has to look at this and say whether this person is being truthful or not, and then what level of that Brady it is. And it actually, she takes it very seriously because it affects that person's career from now on, even after if they get fired or whatever, it can affect them in future job applications. So she takes those very serious. And the civil commitments and then death investigations are very time consuming. The DA's office is responsible for all death investigations in the county, depending on whatever agency it is, the police department, OSP, or the sheriff's office. The DA has final say on that case. Right now, we have 2 murder cases in the county and 1 assault, 1 case, are all very major cases. And she's very, very deeply involved in the DA's office, is very deeply involved in that. So this is the highlights as a work plan, as a recruit, retain deputy DAs and support staff. The DA's office had 100% of turnover of deputy district attorneys. It means nobody's there now except the district attorney that has been there over a year. Every deputy DA they have there now, as we can see, has been there less than a year. Right now, I think the only ones that can prosecute felony cases is the DA herself and her chief deputy. And the other deputies, or other deputy DAs are not qualified to do felony cases. So that's a huge problem for this office. And obviously, the main thing is wanting to recruit qualified people that will stay in our office. Because every time we lose a person, you can see we just lost our chief deputy DA back in July. He just got promoted and she's already not taking another job in the public defense area. So this is a huge problem for our DA's office, and also for our office and for the police department, because we go hand in hand, and the juvenile department, we go hand in hand in cases in the county. And if we don't have deputy DAs who can prosecute these cases, make an arrest on the street and have them sit in jail is a real problem because you have nobody to prosecute. So we have to have both offices to stay up to something. Also, the DA wants to consolidate their IT services with the Pineville Police Department, Sheriff's Office, and 911 dispatch. Currently, we're all under the city IT for the DA's office, or not the DA's, but the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, and 911 are currently under the city IT. It gives us increased efficiency, data security, and then has the CJIS access for child support enforcement, but now having the DA's office involved, that would be all part of what would be improved for her office to be part of the same system. And then coordinate with community corrections. This is a big deal. Erica mentioned that House Bill 4002 is the fix for ballot measure 110, which is the drugs that are made legal in the state of Oregon. This House Bill 4002 reverses that. So now possession of low-level illegal drugs now puts it back as a criminal case. But there is a big part of this has to be done through community corrections, law enforcement, best care, or CMHP, which is our healthcare provider, and through the circuit court to develop this law enforcement assisted diversion, which is called LEAD. It would develop in this program right here in our county. In fact, I was at a meeting in Salem on Thursday, which we were talking about this with other agencies around the state. But this is going to be a big impact on both the Sheriff's Office and the DA's office. But this 4002 goes into effect September 1. And at that point in time, we got to have in place a plan, or at least a plan to put a plan in place for a pre-incarceration diversion or deflection, as the state wants to call And basically what that means is that people who have small amounts of drugs with no other crime attached, but just simple possession of a drug, that person would be given the option to go into treatment and to work with the healthcare, mental health people and treatment providers rather than going to court. That keeps them out of jail, keeps them out of the court docket. But there's also a provision, if they don't follow through on that, then it falls under the district attorney's office and the court system to prosecute and take it forward. So it's a big impact on the DA's office as well as all of law enforcement. And these are just some things that she wanted to highlight is, grant funding for justice reinvestment, and apply the county fee uniformly and increase recovery, discovery expenses. And then, the Victims of Crime Act grant and child abuse multidisciplinary intervention, which is the King grant, provided continued for fiscal year 25. Okay. Any questions for your DA?
I just have a quick question, just for clarification. There's a note here, the district attorney's office will provide a victim advocate and attorney. Is that similar to a CASA type of court appointed special advocate?
I don't really can answer that. Maybe you guys know the answer. But I definitely.
I don't say it's similar, but basically what happens when you're a victim of a crime, you have the right to have an advocate. So they go to court with those people, they answer all their questions, they sit with them while, they're being questioned, any of that stuff. So it is sort of like a
Kind
cost.
of like that.
Yeah.
Is there any cost here?
There is cost in here, yes, as well, yeah, totally separate office, but yes, they are assigned a caseload of victims, and they attend court with them, they answer all their questions, they give them all the documentation, all paperwork, whatever it is they need.
Thank you.
The cost office is right next to the subway.
Julie Martinez has been there. Julie Martinez has been there for 16 years, and she has 2 other women that work with her. And if you go in there and spend an hour with them, you walk away, they're very amazing individuals in what they do. And Julie takes on the really hard cases with the children, and they're amazing, all 3 amazing individuals.
Well, thank you for your question, because as you can see by asking that question, we work as a team. One agency can't survive without the other. And I'd introduce you my undersheriff, he's in charge of our budget this year, he's gonna do that part of it, and my executive assistant over here is gonna take care of what he doesn't take care of.
Absolutely, boss.
I'm gonna stand back and listen.
All right, so sheriff's office fund is contained completely within its own fund. It is appropriated by division, so you can see down the lower section, we have the sheriff's office, jail, emergency and special services, and parole and probation. Within those are the personnel, material services, and any capital outlay needed for the operations of those 4 divisions. On the revenue side, the sheriff's office is primarily a property tax supported fund, with the exception of parole and probation, which receives state funding. That funding is decreased in the current biennium, so parole and probation will spend more of their carryover, is anticipated to spend more of their carryover in fiscal 25. But we have been told that the next biennium, the state plans to increase funding again. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Largest cost in general across the board is personnel cost. So you can see that fiscal 24 year-end estimate, those decreases compared to the fiscal 24 budget are primarily due to vacancies in positions, which we hope to fill in fiscal 25. Historically, the sheriff's office fund spends about 90% of budgeted. All right, it's all you, Bill.
Okay, so, she was talking about personnel, so, first and foremost, this year, we're not asking for any additional FTEs. The reason for that is because we've been constantly hiring, for the last year. The county, commissioners were generous the current budget year that we were in, gave us, a bunch of FTEs, that we've diligently been trying to fill. We're getting close to being at our allocated amount. But since we're not there yet, I think that we can take a break for 1 year, before we go forward, with that. The training issues for new hires, So what that looks like for us is, we hire a new guy and it's about 12 to 18 months before they are on the road in a police car by themselves. It just takes time, and that's, again, these two kind of go hand in hand, because we're not asking for more, because we're still trying to get there, so. Next slide, please. Some of the other issues is increased traffic issues around the county. We did, some town halls, it's been a while ago, we did some town halls in Proudview and Juniper Canyon, and those folks in those two areas really do want to see some traffic enforcement, so that's something that we need to work on, with the increased population in those two areas. We also have an increased violent crime caseload, as the sheriff touched on it during the DA's presentation. We have 2 homicide suspects in custody, with a major assault 1 in custody currently right now. And our caseload, and those are extremely time consuming cases, take a lot of resources. We executed a search warrant out in Juniper Acres last week. I think we had about 10 guys tied up on that for 2 consecutive days. So they do take time. Calls for service, these are the 2023 stats. We got a 3% increase with 13,713 calls for service for our patrol guys last year. So in the jail, this was last fiscal, we converted the tech deputy positions to corrections deputies. That's been wildly successful. It's given the jail commander the opportunity to disperse resources more efficiently. And it's actually working out really well. Bringing in new patrol deputies. So it was probably about a year ago that we started, every time we hire a new patrol deputy, they spend time inside of the jail it's multifaceted. One is so that these folks can go in there and learn what it is that the jail guys are doing, what the corrections guys are doing. And they can kind of get, especially the brand new ones, can kind of get an opportunity to kind of learn how to talk to these folks, see who they are, because we're gonna see them again. That's typically how that works. But that's been really successful as well. Mental health is a big issue, as Erica had talked about, the sheriff talked about. But in the jail, trying to manage that population is problematic in and of itself. We have 6 pods in our jail, 5 pods in our jail. And we break that up into housing units based on classification. We have so many mental health folks in there that can't manage themselves in the general population. So we have a pod designated just for mental health folks, which takes more resources, takes more deputy time, more staff time, those things. But during all of this, we've also maintained several programs addressing substance use disorder and parenting classes. We have church services. We've maintained those programs. We actually have 2 different sets of programs. We have Best Care that comes in and does some programming inside of the jail. And then here in just a second, I'll talk about our mental health gal that we have working for us now that also does some programming in the jail as well. The jail mandated requirement for the sheriff's office, according to ORS. The jail had 1,336 bookings in 2023. We averaged 111 bookings per month, which is a 15% increase over 2022. Increased staff burnout due to mandatory overtime, increased high attention inmates. That's what I was talking about, the timing of getting, yes, we very fortunate that the commissioners gave us these additional positions, but the time that it takes to get these folks up and running is still increased staff burnout. We're getting there. There's a lot at the end of the tunnel, but we're still working towards that. And then our high attention inmates, the classification of folks that are incarcerated currently in the jail are very high attention, high need inmates that take a lot of staff time. High risk trials, we have multiple of those, and it requires a lot of additional resources, including patrol resources and corrections resources, to make sure that those trials are secure. The mental health, this is probation, so the mental health specialist working PP. So she is, she does programming and classes in the jail. She also does groups and classes for folks that are on probation outside of jail. She this morning told me that her caseload was running about 30 people that are highly mentally ill folks that she meets with regularly. And then one of the other things that she does inside of the jail is that they will call her to come down and try to diffuse situations to reduce the use of forces that we have in our jail. They have maintained strong committed staff that's also 100% state funded. This last year replaced aging vehicles because they're 100% grant funded. Yes, constantly changing environment, state, and supervision. So these top two bullets kind of go hand in hand and they kind of contradict each other a little bit. And I'll explain it. So constantly changing environment by the state around the laws of supervision, use of controlled substance with a big push not to hold offenders accountable. So basically what these judgments are saying is that they can't necessarily they have alternative measures to trying to hold them accountable and make them productive members of society. But the passing of House Bill 4002, which the sheriff talked about, is going to have a huge impact on parole probation, because, as the sheriff said, that now it's criminal. Small possession amounts are now criminal. The idea is that they're gonna put them on probation through community corrections with the ability or with the incentive of going to treatment rather than going to jail. So it's gonna cause a huge strain on this division and hopefully not the other, but I'm not sure how successful that's gonna be. And then maintaining staff morale. They get frustrated with the things that are coming out of Salem and different ways that they're being told to try to hold these folks accountable. Emergency and special services, increased call outs. We had a record number of search and rescue calls last year to the tune of 43 call outs, which I don't think this county's ever seen that before. Search and rescue is mostly all volunteer. We have one hired person in that position. The rest is all volunteer work. Actually, I think it's 1.5 FTEs. So we have Andy who works full-time, and then Brandy who works in our front office is half-time paid through this, but it's the most amount of search and rescue calls that I think this county's ever had. Lake is at full capacity. We're anticipating a significant need this year for Marine Patrol. We actually just we have 2 Marine aides that were hired this year, which we hadn't had in a few years because we didn't have any water. So we're gonna be able to diversify our resources when it comes to the water and the Marine patrols this year. Continued reduction in grant funds from EPG and the Marine Board grants, requiring additional county resources to fund the emergency management operations. So I am actually not that familiar with that part of it.
We get about $63,000 a year from the state to fund our emergency management position. And a little bit more, so, meaning we fund probably 130,000 more dollars into it than what we get. It's supposed to be a match. We match it plus some. We match it about 2 to 1, yeah.
So what you're saying is when you see the search and rescue out there, just make sure to donate.
Thank the search and rescue guys. They do it because they love it.
They're great.
They are having fun.
And they are good at what they do.
They are.
They really are.
They are good.
So Andy is really good at throwing these acronyms out, and now that I'm reading them, I'm like, okay, I remember it, but I won't next time I see him. So the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, NHMP, and the new community wildfire protection plan they are due. And the reason that these are so important is because if we do have some kind of a disaster, that's how the county can get reimbursed with federal funds, during those. And the emergency manager is fully involved in every disaster, and if you guys don't know Andy, you should meet him. He's a super guy. And he's involved in a lot more things than just search and rescue. He's part of fleet management. He's doing all kinds of different things, but, though that is that division.
Question?
Oh, good question.
Specifically for sheriff's office, or, we can go into a time of general questions as well?
You did a good job, Bill.
You're getting so thorough, thank you. All right. It is 11:35 right now. In order to have a period of public comments for this first meeting, Chair, I might recommend that you allow that to open in case anybody would like to speak.
Right, so just confirming we don't have any specific budget committee questions at this point. Okay, we'll have an opportunity down in the future. Okay, so public comment, welcome.
Oh, yeah, let's check. I don't see anybody in the chat requesting, and I don't see anybody.
This is off the site, but I just completed the Citizens Academy with the Sheriff's Department. And you get to familiarize yourself with all the different departments, and you get to do search and rescue and all of that. And if you do have an opportunity, I really recommend it. It really opened my eyes. You think you go out and you think Pineville's this little peaceful place. It gives you an appreciation for how good our departments are and what they do for us. Really, I think they'll have another one. I got a graduation certificate, which I hung in my office, a crystal mug, a coaster, and a t-shirt. I'll get all that too, and you get snacks every Wednesday, so how can you lose?
She was holding out for a vest.
I was holding out for a vest, and I'm still, I'm not gonna let him forget that.
The only thing I would add to that is, you're also, everybody is welcome to do ride-alongs with the police and, go through the jail and see what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis in both those places. And, I've done both, and it's very happy to see, how much time and effort it takes to jail the people and then what it takes to be out there on the streets.
You got one funded FTE for SAR, is there, are those guys all 100% volunteer with their vehicles, their equipment, their radios, everything?
Search and rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah, they use our vehicles. We have some of our old retired vehicles that we loan to them to use. They get a lot of their, other equipment through donations, basically, and they're donating equipment. But they also are a 501c3. They're a separate entity from the church. And they do fundraisers, throughout the year. And by doing those fundraisers, they got enough money that this year they bought a new side-by-side, to be able to, use that hold more than just two people, and it's enclosed, and it's got heater. Because when we go out and rescue people, like we had this elderly lady we got rescued out in the forest. Time they got her back, she was almost hypothermic, because you're sitting in this open front thing, and it's really open, cold, no heat. Especially because all this is in the wintertime mostly. And this new one was now enclosed, and it's got heaters, and so now if we pick someone up out in the forest or wherever, we bring them back to the headquarters or the command post, they can be warm, and we're not making things worse, basically. But, they're all volunteers. The only person that's not is Andy, who's paid, and then is our office assistant, it's Brandy. But, we have about 55 to 60 volunteers right now. It varies depending on, because we have a posse, a mounted posse, we have, K-9 team that, both search dogs and cadaver dogs who look for bodies. But those are all part of the search and rescue organization. They're all volunteer.
We have some pass through, like we pay for the insurance on the vehicles and on the side by side. We pay for that as an agency. The fuel, we pay for fuel, but otherwise they take care of it.
And Andy made a note that even though they got this new Polaris, it's with heat and everything, he still has to ride in the very, very back. So maybe we need a little camper shell for Andy in the back.
A little trailer full of it.
Yeah, you did make that note. So that's the paid guy. He gets the worst part of it. The volunteers get to be in front with the lady with the.
I have to brag a bit about our jail. We moved in the jail there in August of 2019. And it was brand new at the time. And over the years, you would think that the jail would start smelling like a jail and looking like a jail. But we consistently get jail assessments done by both CIS and the jail's inspection team throughout the state for OSSA. And they tell us, even though you're now not the newest jail, but you are still the best jail. It smells clean, it looks clean, it's well taken care of. And I say that the only reason it's like that is not because the people that we bring into the jail are any different, but because my staff that work there are so dedicated and hard workers. Even though they've been short-staffed, they've still maintained the jail in a top-notch condition. And it's very good for us, for Crook County, for around the state, to have that recognition from both our CIS, our insurance carrier, who comes in and looks and say how we're doing business, and from the jail inspection team, who goes into all the jails throughout the state to say that we still have the best.
And if you damage it, if an inmate damages it, we will hold them accountable and charge them for.
Any other questions? We did open the public comment, so it does not appear that anybody online wished to comment. I don't know if anybody else in the room wants to jump up. But Chair, you'll have to close that period of public comment as well.
Okay, well, looks like we are done with public comment, and the only thing left is adjournment.
At this point, yes, we have a hard stop in this room soon. So unless there are some closing remarks you should have, then
Okay, well then we're adjourned. Thank you.
excellent. Yep, tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Do you need help choosing?
We do have to just so you know, tomorrow's meeting is in the room next door,
Oh, okay.
not this room. Thank you all.
Yeah.